Hello and welcome to the Sunday Guardian podcast with Joyeeta Basu. Viewers, at a time when there is so much roiling of relations between India and the US, in particular when they have imposed a 50% tariff on us, and where we are also not showing any signs of budging, and apparently, if we do not budge, the US is also not going to budge. So, what exactly is going on? And especially when you look at it in terms of the China factor in the relationship, I mean, apparently, we are suddenly best friends with China. Well, I'm not so certain about that. We'll find out during the course of the program. And the thing is that, and we are also apparently totally going into that, we are reviving that so called RIC bloc, Russia, India, China. So, what exactly is going on in this sphere? Now, to discuss this and tell you more about this, I have Professor B.R. Deepak in the studio. He is with the Center for Chinese and Southeast Asian Studies of Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. His latest book is Rising India and China Strategic Rivalry in the Himalayas and the Indo Pacific. And it's in 2 volumes. He is one of the foremost China experts in the country. Welcome to the show, Professor Deepak.
Thanks, Joyeeta, for having me.
Yeah, okay. The first obvious question is that you see, given the situation that is evolving right now, why is the US discarding India? It's almost that is how it seems like, while it is kowtowing to China. What do you think is going on exactly? Has India lost its relevance to the US?
I think it's very simple. So one is geopolitics of it, and second, of course, it is geoeconomics, I would say. So as far as geopolitics of it is concerned, I think since we have been in the U.S. orbit for quite some time, I would not say orbit, but of course we have maintained strategic autonomy, rather than sitting in the lap of the United States. But I think Trump perhaps wish to have us, totally on their side, which perhaps is not what India is looking for, maintaining our so-called strategic autonomy. And second, of course, is the economics of it, because United States believes that the stakes for United States with India, so they are very, very few. Comparing China. So China is deeply integrated into American economic system, and to discard, so that kind of integration, perhaps it would cost much more to United States. Though I think the tariffs on India, they will also perhaps shoot up inflationary trends in United States a bit, but not, to the extent which would be by way of the Chinese, you can say, tariffs. If so, they are, much, much more what they are at this point in time. And this is precisely what United States is negotiating with China. So they have got the second reprieve of 90 days. And moreover, if you believe some of the viewpoints coming out from United States, for example, George Friedman, so he says that U.S. is willing to sacrifice India, for sort of like bargaining with China to have a better deal. And if you see China and India in this perspective, perhaps China doesn't want India to be totally in the United States orbit. And that is why it believes, that it may be one of the factors by way of which Trump would be able to strike a little bit better deal with China. But if you say, India has been punished because China buys more oil from Russia than us, and EU buy more gas, than anyone else, more than 50% of used gas, it comes from Russia. And US itself, it buys a lot more, for example, uranium, plutonium. And there are talks between U.S. Oil companies with Russian companies at this point in time. So I don't think it is primarily because of India's, purchase of Russian oil, but I think it is more to that geopolitics of it. and I think economics of it.
If we do not take into account the view that India is being used as a pawn, if we are thinking in terms of what you said initially, that the US thinks does not want to be, I mean, basically wants India completely to be in its camp, how does it help US's case by, punishing, literally punishing India like this on basically trumped up excuses, if I can use that term? So the thing is that, I mean, it is but natural that India will be moving, if not completely, but to a large extent towards, I mean, at least if not moving, they would be more amenable towards listening to what China is saying. What sort of geopolitics is that?
And naturally, I think China would be more than happy. And if you see the signals emanating from Beijing and even their ambassador in New Delhi, saying that we are with India and we should, withstand the bullying by the United States or call the bluff of their protectionism or unilateralism, so on and so forth. So that is the Chinese consistent position as far as United States tariffs are concerned. But I think at the same time, so if we think our rapprochement with China, I don't think it is primarily because of US slapping tariffs on India, because India's approach, if you see pre-patrolling arrangement reached out between India and China last October in Kazan, which was announced by the leaders of both our countries, it was clear, so that engagement has been on with China. Several rounds of talks have been conducted at the Corps commander level, and then also WMCC is there, and then NSA visiting each other's country. Ajit Doval was in Beijing last December, and Wang Yi's recent visit return visit, in fact, for 24th round of special representative talks in India. And the kind of multilateral forums both countries they have utilized is to start with ASEAN in Laos, where our defense ministers met, and then run up for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, which Prime Minister Modi would be attending, between 31st and 1st of September. So therefore, I think to say that it is, sort of like a knee-jerk reaction to the Trump's tariffs of India, I don't think that is right. This is a continuous engagement with China, and we wanted to improve our relations with China. But I think, of course, the international circumstances, especially the Trump's tariffs, I think they would emanate a signal that India is pivoting towards China, and at the same time towards Russia, as you mentioned, the RIC, Russia, India, China. But as a China watcher, I don't think it is going to too much of one harm, because of various structural problems between this relationship. We have problems also with.
Here, if we can go a little into detail on this. When you're talking about problems, how much of this rapprochement is actual, rapprochement, or is it, as you in fact have written about in Sunday Guardian, it's optics?
Yeah.
Why would you say that?
I think optics for various reasons. One, of course, as I see it as the continuation of improving relations with China, urged from both the countries. We are neighboring countries, and China is our largest trading partner. And border problem, of course, it is there, but we have been negotiating. It has not been stalled. We have reached, various agreements on those friction points in the form of buffer zones, and then patrolling arrangement whereby China dismantles their forward post in these friction points, especially in the Y junction, in Depsang, and also in Dampjok. So that is one part of it. So it is continuation. And I think Wang Yi's visit to India for this 24th special representativity should also be seen in this light. So that is one thing. Another, I would say, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. India has been, participating in it ever since it was inducted in 2017 and 2000. You can say 19, 2020, and even last year, a summit was held in India. It was, of course, you can say virtual. It was online. It was not offline. So people that didn't visit, Xi Jinping did come, and various other leaders, of course. Perhaps India was also hosting G20, so on and so forth. So to say that so India has been outside or lukewarm to Shanghai Cooperation Organization, that I don't buy this argument. Of course, we have differences. For example, we have differences on counterterrorism, cross-border terrorism, because the interpretation or the narratives, from China and Pakistan, which is also one of the members of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, are very, very different. So and that is also visible in the wake of Operation Sindoor, how China has interpreted cross-border terrorism and how India has countered both the narrative emanating from Beijing and Islamabad. So therefore, there are structural differences I've been talking about, but that does not prevent us from cooperating in Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and we have been doing so, irrespective of our differences. And then, as far as trade is concerned, so as I said, that China is our largest trading partners, and we have been, I think, over dependent in some sectors on Chinese products. For example, electronics is one of the sectors. APIs in pharma is another. And I think this interdependence on China in the short term and long, especially in the medium term, I would say, it is not going away. So therefore, we know that we perhaps cannot also, disturb this cart at this point in time, unless and until we build our own capacities. Having said that, but looking for China or United States, for that matter, to revamp our manufacturing, I think perhaps we should not be relying too much on it, because the way China has been propped up, as a counterweight to the United States or the West, by way of, you can say, China inviting a lot of capital, technology, and you can say managerial capabilities from the West. You can say United States has created a monster now, so because they are challenging the existing hegemon. So therefore, the same analogy, if you are applying it to India, whether it's from the Chinese side or from the United States, I think, as a realist, it's not going to happen. So therefore, we should not be naive that we should be depending on United States for revamping up our capabilities or capacities, and same logic applies on China. I don't think it will happen, and it has been openly said by various Chinese experts, scholars, and even the internal coterie of Xi Jinping, those who advise him that no, we are not going to prop up Indian manufacturing because it would pose a challenge to us.
So, what else are the Chinese saying about this particular phase? If I call it, it's more like a tactical maneuver right now, perhaps, whatever is happening between India and China, perhaps on part of both countries. What exactly is the Chinese view of this?
I think Chinese view is pretty straightforward. One, of course, so they are supporting India against United States, bullying, because they see United States as a bully, and slapping these tariffs without any logic. So much so, if you have read the statements of one of the closest economic advisors, trade advisors of Trump,
Navarro.
Navarro. So now he is gone mad to say that Ukraine war is Modi's war. So
Yes.
if that is the statement, so you can gauge, right? So how the American policies have been totally thrown topsy turvy, and there is no logic in it, right? So China, so they try to make the world, understand, especially global South, that you see. So this is the bully. There's no logic. It is the sheer transactionalism, and they can sacrifice anyone for that. So that one should not be sacrificed. And China would like to pose itself, as a friend, as a protector of these, especially the smaller countries. I'm not saying India, but for India, it will also extend a helping hand. And of course, I think China would like to utilize also perhaps this kind of maneuvering, so to bargain better with the United States to get a better deal. I mean, after all, it
Basically,
is
use India.
naturally, I would say, that's what I said that George Friedman was talking about. So I think again, coming to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, though we wish to move our relationship further, and that is the, I think, historical necessity also. Various fields. So whether it is economics, whether it is people to people connections between India and China. The restoration of visa is there. The border trade is been resumed. The flights perhaps soon would be resumed, so on and so forth. I think in one way or another, so these things would have happened in any way, irrespective of Trump's tariffs on India or not. So therefore, I think China also at this point in time is emanating the signal so that, so we are with you. We will jointly fight the United States. You be firm, but then you never know, because Chinese, so they also work on, you can say, pure pragmatism. And if they get a better deal from the United States, they would also not mind sacrificing India.
So basically,
So
at another level, it's also about, yes, we will quote unquote fight with you against the US, but don't forget who's the boss.
no, of course, I mean
Yeah, that's there.
that is already the second largest economy of the world, right?
Yes.
And it is basically the fight between China and United States, and I think India at this at this juncture, it has been sandwiched between this fight, right? And so we have to view like how we balance, how we recalibrate, how we approach these two warring factions.
So, what kind of a better deal is China expecting, which will allow you to, I mean, which makes it take India for granted or dump India, if we can use that term at all?
I would say that as far as China dumping India is concerned, it will not concern us much, because our market is not China. So to be very frank, right? In fact, our trade with China is in deficit. Right. So therefore, I think for me this is not much of a concern. So much of a concern would be United States, because our trade with the United States is in surplus. So it is almost, so 45, 46 billion surplus. And if we lose that market by way of these tariffs, so then it creates a lot of problems, for various sectors in India. And to find that market in China, simply will not work out, because China is primarily an exporting country, right? And China would be happy to export any product to India, which anyway is happening, right? That's what we call it, this interdependence. But I think at the same time, if China is not going to the market, we have to diversify and look out for other markets. And Southeast Asia perhaps won't be another market. I think what we have to look for is the global South. So that could be one of the possibility. But then here, to build new market, to explore new market, it requires a lot of time. It requires a lot of patience, and the kind of trade we have with the United States. So there could be a structural problem as far as exporting to global South is concerned. Because we still are not a very powerful manufacturing country. So if we are not, so then perhaps our exploration of the markets in the global south, so it will take much longer time before we build our manufacturing capability or prowess.
So, what leverage do we have with China, if at all, in terms or is this trade deficit is the leverage?
I don't think it is much of a leverage because though the trade deficit is huge, but see the sheer economy of China, so it is massive. It is $19 trillion plus economy and a trade deficit of maybe 100 billion US dollar. Perhaps it won't matter too much for China. I don't think we have any leverage against China because we are primarily, you can say, an importing country, and also we export our raw material, perhaps a better. Perhaps a bit more of, you can say, so these fisheries or maybe raw materials, so on and so forth. But primarily, I don't think this could be used as a leverage. On contrarily, we highly rely on China, for the rare earths. So that's what the understanding was reached during Wang Yi's visit to India on rare earths, on fertilizer is another product, and maybe the batteries, the lithium-ion batteries for our EV industries, and even semiconductors, for our cars and all. So we don't produce them in India. So it is a good thing that Prime Minister Modi has recently announced that by the end of this year we would be producing our first chip in India. So which is a welcome step, but we have a long way to go in. And the same thing applies to United States. I think we don't have much leverage, against United States. I think their tech company could have been one of the leverages because there are 30 of them and they're huge and they earn a lot of money from India. But then tech has not been, tariffed. And so is the case with pharma. So I think, if you see these markets and India's role in it, but we still require United States. Therefore, I'm still hopeful that these talks on the trade deal, they will happen. And once a trade deal is reached, perhaps, so these would be rolled back. But the kind of damage which has been done to India-United States relation by Trump, so that is already there. So the level of mistrust and perhaps, more caution from India towards United States, that would be the future norm, at least during the Trump's presidency.
And that suits China perfectly.
Yes, it suits China, and that's why China is playing his card very, very judicially at this point in time to perhaps take leverage from all the sides in.
So, are we then actually following China's line when it says that, border, it should be business as usual? The border can be handled separately, which Mr. Jaishankar was saying at one point of time that no, border is the first thing that we have to sort out, and then only it's going to be business as usual. Have we moved away from that position?
Here, I think, to some extent, yes. So we have diluted our position on border. First, by way of agreeing to China to establish these buffer zones in our own territory. So that is one part of it. And second, of course, without de-escalation, I hope this will happen as the result of this rapprochement. But as of now, it has not happened. And that is why, if you see the Indian statement released by Ministry of External Affairs, and you juxtapose it with the statement released by the MOFA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China, our recurring theme is on border, confidence-building measures on border, and also the de-escalation, on the border. Whereas the Chinese statement, so you will see that it is very, very different. So they don't talk about it. They are talking about strategic positioning of the relationship. In the same when, so they also talked about putting border problem at a proper position of India-China relations. Right? So that is the, I would say, continuous theme of the Chinese. I hope this engagement or this recalibration of the relations, it will enable us to de-escalate from the border, and perhaps if that happens, then the relationship would be diversified in a better way in other areas.
So, this Pakistan factor. Now, when we are talking about Pakistan and China, China is obviously backing Pakistan totally against India. And now Mr. Trump is also backing Pakistan against India. So, which way are things headed? Are we back to, even in China's eyes, are we back to being hyphenated with Pakistan? Number one, I mean, the US, at least, this is Trump, is definitely trying to do that. And more importantly, what happens to projects like CPEC and that port that they have in Gwadar and all, which China has sunk a lot of money in Pakistan, I think around $65 billion or something like that. And suddenly Mr. Trump is coming into the picture and wants a share of the cake. So, I mean, too many things are happening at the same time, isn't it?
Yes, I think as far as India, China, Pak is concerned, China has always hyphenated. So there is no doubt about it. From the very beginning, it has been their policies. Right after 1962, I would say. So it has been very much there. And Operation Sindoor perhaps is the culmination of that. And we can see that now it is sort of like overt. You can say containment of India by way of Pakistan. And the same thing applies to the way they look at cross-border terrorism. In fact, they don't support India on that. And this is primarily for this reason why our defense minister, Rajnath Singh, refused to sign on the document when the Pahalgam was not mentioned there. So differences are quite there. And this is also why we have problems with China in this Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So that is one thing. But if you see now the United States and India, so here again I would say they have hyphenated now. Trump has hyphenated, which perhaps is not good for our positioning. So that means what China has been asking, sort of like parity for Pakistan and India. So now the Trump is doing the same thing. So you never know if you apply the logic of George Friedman here again. Perhaps there is some sort of understanding between the two, and it is also been used as a bargain chip. I mean, this is my sheer speculation, so I cannot confirm it. But then if you apply that logic, so it seems that it works here, also. And Pakistan coming closer to United States, of course, there are business interests. So it's again economics. Trump's family has been benefited, because of this Bitcoin deals, and also the so-called exploration of mineral wealth in Balochistan. Whether it will happen or not, so I don't think so. And the same logic of dehyphenation, it will continue with our relationship with China. And not only this, in fact, so they have been formulating other pivots, away from Pakistan. So if you see, so they are bringing in now Bangladesh, remember, so they had this trilateral. What does it mean, for India? So naturally, so it would be another concern. And now, if you see during Shanghai Cooperation Organization, there are statements emanating from China, so that CPAC is being extended to Kabul. Afghanistan is going to be part of it. And if not, perhaps, so they are going to open up a new, you can say, rail and road network by a Bakhan corridor, connecting Afghanistan. So that is another
The northern
approach.
part.
Yeah, not northern part. And our problem is that we don't have access, to these areas, and neither do we have access to Central Asia. So that creates a lot of problem for us, and perhaps our foreign policy has to respond to these new developments accordingly.
No, but then the question that I have in mind is that how is the US seeing China's role in Pakistan, and how is China, and vice versa? Because now both of them are going to be there. So how are they going to handle each other over there?
I think
Specifically Balochistan.
no, I think this is a long-term thinking.
Okay.
I don't know whether it is going to happen during Trump's times. It's just a statement, or perhaps it is, again coercing or browbeating India to have a deal with the United States, right? And perhaps also, so it is also a chip, you can say, to coerce China to have a deal with the United States. This could also be interpreted this way, but nothing concrete has happened on the ground. So it is futuristic, you can say, development of the resources inside Pakistan. Whether these resources are there or not, so that is also a question mark. Whether minerals or oil, So therefore, I think at this point in time, so I would say, so it is just a bargaining chip,
So why has China never really gone into Balochistan? Because it knows in terms of extracting rare earths from Balochistan and the so-called oil that is there. Is it because they know it's a hoax, or it's next to impossible to handle the insurgency that is going on, the freedom movement that is going on over there?
No, I think at this point in time, it is primarily because of the security concerns. So they have been asking Pakistan to resolve these issues, and obviously Pakistan has not been able to um, uh, to fulfill the Chinese requirement, and then this so-called liberation movement, or you call insurgency. So it is on its peak, and if you see the Chinese engineers and people being killed in Balochistan, so in this year alone, more than 10 Chinese engineers and people, they have been killed there. Maybe more. These are the public figures emanating from the Chinese sources. So this remains one of the great concerns of China, and and Pakistan is trying its best, but then I think it would be a little problem, and the kind of investments so they have made that it is not being fructified.
I have a suspicion that Pakistan is going to say that India is behind this Balochistan insurgency, and that is how another issue that is going they are going to create between US and India.
Yeah, they have always said it. Pakistan, they have never shied of bringing in India, right? So they have always said. In fact, Chinese, so they have started to believe that it is the problem created by Indians, and denying, the kind of insurgencies that is in Af-Pak region, including TTP, right? So therefore, I think it also exposes the kind of double standards so China has on terrorism, uh, in Pakistan itself. So they know that, so they are also a victim of terrorism in Pakistan, like Pakhtunkhwa, a recent operation. So it also demonstrates this, and you can say the incidents like Pahalgam. So it also makes very, very, very clear of their double standards, on interpretation or the narratives of terrorism.
What are you expecting from Prime Minister Modi's visit to SCO, 31st to 1st, as you said? And this is also significantly coming just 2 days before that parade that China is supposed to have. And it seems Putin is going to be there along with Xi Jinping. And is there any pressure or not pressure? What they're hoping that Mr. Modi will also join them?
One, of course, is the great, you can say, optics it provides, to showcase to the world that the China is the center of the world politics, all the great leaders. So they have congregated in Beijing, and some of the big announcements, especially with the India-China relations, perhaps would be made. The resumption of the flights perhaps is going to be one thing, and perhaps a series of other deals pertaining to investment could also not be ruled out. So this would be a theater for great rhetorics, I would say, emanating from Beijing during this point in time. But I think as far as Prime Minister Modi joining this parade of thirds, so that is totally ruled out. I think uh, it would give a very, very wrong signal, to the entire world that India is there with various world leaders, and perhaps China would love to have Modi for this
Were they hoping to that he
parade.
would be there?
Perhaps I think there are all questions being asked, whether Prime Minister Modi would be attending this great parade or not. But I think if you look India's role, of course, that time it was colonial India's role in war of resistance against Japanese aggression, from 1931 to 1945. In fact, India's role has been there. India has played a great role. Remember, Dr. Kotnis was one of the doctors, a team which was sent by Indian National Congress back in 1938. And, the kind of statements have been given out by Prime Minister Nehru. In fact, he visited China in 1939, just before the outbreak of the World War. And including Gandhi, India will not buy its independence at the expense of Chinese freedom, so on and so forth. So the Chinese people, they know that in Indian leadership, especially the leadership during the freedom movement, so they had sympathized with China, and they have offered material supports also to China. So this has been acknowledged by China. In fact, their leaders, irrespective of our malevolent relationship with them, but this aspect has always been acknowledged by China. And even the Communist Party of China, they acknowledge, even Rabindranath Tagore's, so his views on war in China, and how, so he have held Japan responsible. In fact, he spoiled his relationship with his close friend Yon Noguchi. So Chinese, so they are aware, and then perhaps through these articulations, so they would perhaps like Prime Minister Modi's presence during this this great parade. But I think it would be
Outrageous right now.
yeah, outrageous, unwise, I would say, on the part of Indian leadership if they take part in this kind of parade.
Yeah, now we are approaching towards the end of the podcast. I've got a couple of questions. Number one, what is this? I mean, it is going to come back. Basically, I'm coming back on China and US. The thing is that what is the economic situation like in China right now? And if, in this context, if Trump, the negotiations break down, and if Trump insists on putting some weirdly high tariffs on China, how well placed is China to withstand that?
To start with, this trade war between United States and China, it has been going on since 2017. And I think so China has played it very, very smartly. So they have diversified their markets. So US, no doubt, it remains one of the largest, but they have successfully diversified their markets. So one, Southeast Asia has emerged as one of the largest markets in Asia. The trade volume is more than 1 trillion US dollars. So you can imagine 1 trillion US dollars. Now, of course, it cannot be compared with the EU and United States. So that is another level. But then a smaller, you can say, region, and then also the global South. With the global South countries, China, so trade, it has increased tremendously. It's more than 2 to 3 trillion US dollars. So you can imagine diversification that happened, and in fact China's reliance on US market over the period of time, if you see the data, so it has decreased. It has not increased. And same is true for their overall trade volume with the United States. So it has decreased. So therefore, my earlier argument that it is not the United States which decoupling from China, it is China which is decoupling from United States and exploring other possibilities for replacing United States. Now, the second point is, as far as China's economic situation, domestic economic situation is concerned, I would say China is still struggling, though they have been able to manage a decent growth rate, but still, various sectors, so they were responsible for their massive growth, so they are in shambles. For example, real estate sector. So that was the driver of China's economic growth for the last 2 decades. So that is totally, problematic, and banks are reeling under debt crisis. Even the consumers, households, people, so those who borrowed money from banks, so they are also reeling under debt crisis. So this is sort of like vicious cycle, which perhaps Xi Jinping has not been able to, come out of. And it will linger on for some time. The investment, again, is problematic because there used to be a lot of foreign direct investment coming into China. So that has dried up. And investment from within also, though the Chinese, so they have, tried to boost it by various ways. For example, this dam in Brahmaputra. So I also look into, so that perspective, because massive investment is going to happen there. So that is also, one way of how to spur your domestic growth. Now, the third pillar, which is the existing pillar, that is the export. I think if this pillar, develops some cracks, so then the Chinese economy would be in real danger. But so far, so good. At least, so this massive pillar, I would say, they are still sustaining Chinese growth and economy. And that is how they see India as a potential export market for their products.
That's the leverage. My final question. That's the leverage that India perhaps, has over China. The thing is that the final question is Trump looking at the world as a G2 world. One pole is US and the other pole is China, but doesn't he realize China's goal is a unipolar world order where China is the single pole? One and only. Isn't that the way?
It's very difficult to predict Trump. You see, unpredictability is the characteristics of Trump. So perhaps I won't be able to comment on this. He could, if he is, willing to sacrifice India. So then perhaps, he would be happy to have a G2 relationship with China. But again, I think it is cyclic. As far as my understanding is concerned, so Trump is not going to rule United States forever. So he has 3 more years, and whosoever comes, naturally, if you see the hegemonic cycle of international politics, then naturally China is the biggest challenger of United States at this point in time, and US would not like China to see in US's position, which is at this point in time. So therefore, I think if the good sense prevail on the policymakers in United States and also Trump, then I would say India's role in, countering China would be there. And this is that at this point in time, perhaps, some of the policymakers in Trump administration, they are re-emphasizing that at the end we'll be together again.
We will see, because China definitely wants to be the overlord and the primary hegemon, isn't it?
Of course, it is the emerging hegemon which would like to replace the existing hegemony. There is no doubt about it.
Well, it looks like we are in for some interesting times, according to the Chinese, what the Chinese mean by interesting times. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Deepak, so much for being in the show. And thank you, viewers, for watching. Until the next time.
Thank you. My pleasure.